Coming up for about 5:45 on the AM Report. It's great to have you with us this Thursday morning. Let's give you a quick reminder of the big stories we're tracking for you as we count down into the day. A 3-year-old girl who, remember, was stabbed to death and a body was found in a veld in Orange Farm will be laid to rest today. Sadly, it comes exactly 2 weeks since the family of Booi laid her to rest. We'll bring you some of those details in just a moment. Plus, keeping a close eye on the COVID-19 figures and those tallies. A grim situation indeed. Recorded 5,688 new COVID-19 infections in the past 24 hours. That by far is the highest single-day jump to date, and it's pushed the national infections now to 111,796. We were warned that we'll get here, and it certainly appears that that's exactly what is taking place. It's those stories and many others that we're going to be keeping an eye on for you. Of course, in matters to do with school, the academic year is still going ahead in some respects. We're going to be touching base with how this is going ahead in the Western Cape. Of course, this is an area of concern as one of the epicenters in the country, giving you a sense really as we count down to other grades also phasing in, how we've managed to do so far with being able to maintain some kind of learning and teaching in the country during the pandemic. We'll also be taking a look at, I guess, sometimes we speak about the stories that often take a hold in the news cycle without honing in on the individuals that are part of these stories. Over the past few weeks, we've been honing in on the plight of many people in the taxi industry, passengers like yourself, as well as some of the taxi drivers who have been in the news mostly because of, I guess, the widespread rejection of Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula's 1.1 billion rand stimulus. So today we'll be honing in on one taxi driver and give you a sense of what their day looks like on an everyday basis and get you an idea of sometimes, I guess, if you like, some of the thinking behind the calls that many of the taxi drivers are making and the ways through which they make ends meet on a day-to-day basis. Our reporter, Sipakem, as you can see, will be keeping a close eye on that and how it unfolds. Plus, we'll be looking at, I guess, the Firehead murder. We're tracking the story of a 30-year-old man who was allegedly killed by a policeman in what's allegedly a road rage incident. Now, the 30-year-old, we understand, was killed earlier this month in Firehead, allegedly after a brawl with the law enforcement officer. Karinda Jacques Mahan is our reporter in KZN. She's going to be, I guess, giving us some of the details behind the story and helping us understand ways through which this incident might have taken place. Still also with school matters, you remember, of course, the death of George Floyd has brought into sharp focus a lot of calls around racism, dismantling ways through which structural racism takes place, etc., etc. On top of us tracking how the academic year is going, we'll be honing in at St. Mary's DSG, a Black Girls Protest is what they're calling it. And this is, of course, in the wake of widespread allegations of racism taking place at that institution. Recently also, learners from Pretoria Girls High School protested against continued racism at that institution. Today we understand black learners at St. Mary's are also going to be staging a protest. And of course, Newzroom Afrika on our news desk will be keeping a close eye on that story, give you a sense of how things pan out. Plus, I also mentioned earlier on, of course, that an Orange Farm girl who was murdered and then dumped in an open field will be laid to rest today. You remember, 3-year-old Anisha Keha's body was found stuffed in a washing basket last week in the south of Joburg in Orange Farm. Our very own Malungelo Booi has been working on the story since it first emerged last week. Malungelo joins us now in our studios in Johannesburg to give us a sense of how things are likely to pan out. So, Malu, here we are once again. It almost feels like we're having the same conversation exactly 2 weeks ago today. We're speaking about Booi being laid to rest, and now this 3-year-old girl.
And I must say that it was exactly at around this time last week and where the body of this 3-year-old was in fact found in an open field. In fact, it was found by somebody who was just going through the rubbish that was thrown there, and it had been stuffed in a yellow washing basket. And some of the people that saw that saying that she was still dressed in red pants and there was fresh blood. She had been stabbed. That's what authorities had in fact said to us. Also, when we were at the scene at the time, I mean, one of the things that you see there was that it's it's an open field, but you can see that there's houses on your left and on your right, and there's a main road. And that, in a way, on its own, this is what some people were telling me when I was there, that that body was essentially dumped there because they did not hear, cries from the child overnight. And that's why they're saying that they really want authorities to get to the bottom of this. And of course, as you said, that no arrests have yet been made by police. But we know that the family last week had, in fact, and the mother of this 3-year-old, bear in mind, she is 23 years old herself, had been giving statements to the police. But also I think it's important to tell you, Ayana, that when we visited the house last week on Friday, we were told that she, in fact, had been left by her mother, who had gone just across the road to sort out stock, because she also is an informal trader. She sells vegetables. She left, the 3-year-old at home. She had been feeding. She was eating. She had dished out for her, food, and she quickly stepped out, and she said, well, I'll come back. And I was told that she normally does this, and the child, would take her time eating. But this time around, the child finished up eating, and she went to look for her mother, and her mother was not there. And we were told that that's when a stranger picked her up and left with her.
Yeah, and of course this comes at the back of us learning that the child had actually been reported missing a day before. I wonder, whether we've heard anything from law enforcement officers about what they did when this child was reported missing, and whether, that could have possibly staved off this grim discovery.
It's one of the things when I was there last week with some activists, people that are very involved when it comes to searching for missing children, they said that the authorities or community members were not as quick as they should have been in making sure that the minute this child is missing, that hour when you don't know this child, this is where you have to mobilize everyone in that particular community to find the child, because they're saying that you have to search every household. You have to stop. You have to try and make sure that you advocate for everybody. You mobilize everyone to stop the cars, ask them about this child. So it seems here, well, according to what I have been told when I was on the ground, it seems here that those first few hours, that's where the delay was at, and that could possibly, if people had acted fast within that hour, perhaps we could be having a different discussion today. Well, we don't know, but that's certainly what activists in that particular community had actually said to me. And the fact that police have not arrested anyone, that is something that is worrying many people in that community.